Hello everyone, good afternoon. So I'm assuming everyone is here for the Android workshop, yeah? Woo. Alright, woo! Alright, cool. So we'll begin. So a quick intro about us. We're the Developer Student Club, and I'm Akshay and Abdullah. And so we'll be working together on creating this Android app. But first, we'll begin. So this is a quick preview of some of the stuff we'll be doing, both on the front end and back end. So now, before we begin, we said we're the Developer Student Club. So what are DSCs? Let's explore a bit more. So a Developer Student Club is a club that's partnered with basically an initiative by Google where they back up student clubs to help students become developers. And so we teach everyone about through student workshops about how to make apps, mobile development tools, and basically how to make a positive impact in your community through technology. So this is one such workshop where we do that. And so we are trying to basically help students bridge that gap between I have an idea, it's a cool idea, and this is how we're going to implement it. And I think being in HackDavis is one of those great opportunities where we're going to go and make that entire connection happen. And so beyond HackDavis, our club continues doing this kind of work. So now we cover a multitude of technologies. If you attended the GCP workshop, they covered quite a few that we also cover. And some brief core technologies we'll be talking about is Firebase, Google Cloud Platform, Flutter, which is the cross-platform language where you code in one console, and it will work for both your iOS and Android applications. And lastly, Android itself, which we will be discussing today. So now, before we get started, beyond this hackathon, all of us are going to be working towards submitting, hopefully, the best hack there is. And after that, some people are they just either resign or retire their workshops to GitHub, and that's the end of the day. But you can continue. The adventure doesn't stop here. So with the Solution Challenge, which is a challenge hosted by Google, all Developer Student Club members across the world can compete and get the support of Googlers and other industry professionals in creating an impact-driven solution for their community and showcase it to the world. So it's a pretty amazing competition. We have a lot more details about it for later. But it's definitely something you should check out. And yeah. So really quickly, now onto the intro tutorial. Thank you for bearing with that. Please follow the QR code so we can send you a link to get started. So this link will add you all to our Slack group, which we created just for this event. And that way we can easily share lots of links and resources with you without having to walk around and get everyone's emails or do something else like that, or have all of you type ridiculously long URLs. So I'll give you all a minute or two to get logged in. And we'll just move on to the next slide while you're doing that. So yeah, here we're gonna now, once you're ready, give me the thumbs up signal or something, letting me know that you're now in the Android Slack group. And you can basically, there's a link you can click to get started. Oh yeah, are we good? If anyone has any trouble, let me know. Okay. Okay, so now we'll begin working on that app itself. So to the link that you're clicking today, we're using a software called Code Labs. And so Code Labs is one of the many platforms in which we'll be learning about Google Cloud Platform and the tools that we can use. So, for example, we will now be walking through a full-on tutorial on how to use and make an Android app. So all your screen should look something like this. Hang on, sorry. Alright, so all of you should have a screen looking something like this. And so this will basically teach you how to use Android. Today we're going to be working on Android with Java. So could you all raise your hands if you know Java? Awesome. Alright. So for those of you who don't know, don't worry. We're not going to go too deep in terms of what Java is and how to use it. Or what it is. It's more about how we're going to use it and implement it inside the app. And so it's definitely something you can look back on and learn. And yeah, we'll begin. So first, we need to install Android Studio. This will take some time, so if you already have it installed, could you raise your hands if you have it installed? Awesome, okay. So you guys are definitely ahead of the game. And so while this version requires 3.6, you can try working on the app through this tutorial, and in case it doesn't work, I mean, everything is safe for you to try again. And it's a pretty simple process, so it shouldn't be too bad. And for those of you who don't have Android Studio, there are 2 steps that you should follow. That was detailed in the previous slide and also in this information page. So the first one is the download page, and because we're using quite a new version with lots of cool new features of Android Studio, we want to use the Android Studio Preview link, which is at the very top over there, the Android Studio Preview page. That's tongue twisted. So if you're using that link, you'll see you can click something called the Android Studio 3.6 and RC. And so that will help you, while it's not fully stable, it's something that has a lot of cool features that we'll be using in the app. So next, now we're going to move on to, once we've installed Android Studio, we want to create our first project. So you'll all have a screen, if you scroll down. So you'll get started on Android Studio, and then you want to click yeah, so we're just loading Android Studio right now. So while Android Studio is a fairly slow and long app, it's really rewarding to use because it allows you to work more with mobile development, and it's something that lots of companies and solutions these days use in terms of making sure it's a more impact-driven and direct solution. So now all we have to do is start a new project, and then we're going to choose basic activity. And now we'll call this application HackDavis 2020. You can call it anything you want, my first project. That also works. And the language we want is Java. So if you click on that, choose Java. So Kotlin is another Android-supported language, but since most of us are anyways familiar with Java, I think it's a good starting ground. So click Finish. And then it should be loading, but if you continue scrolling, yeah. So this is Android 3.5, so we'll do our best, but Android 3.6 is also the main one we want to use. And yeah, so we'll start getting on the project. So if you go back to the, yeah. So basically what you see us doing right now is just going back into the app development by following the tutorials, if you go all the way down. If your screen is blocked by the Gradle icon, you can just click Gradle, which is at the bottom of there. So scroll down. Alright, sorry, one sec. It looks like our tutorial is a little off. We're going to quickly go to the Java version. So everything is the same. It's going to say Java instead of Kotlin. So now, same old, same old. So now as we go down, something cool about Android Studio is it's not just going to be a bunch of code like you see in normal CS classes. It's going to be both the text version and the web app wireframe version, where you can actually drag, drop, and interact with elements. So if you scroll down, yeah, you can see here. Currently, it should be defaulting to the XML. That's what they call it for the setup of the Android page. And as you continue, you can see there are a bunch of steps you can explore, such as the Android app, and inside the app elements such as manifests. So that's definitely something you can explore down the line. And yeah, so let's continue. So these are just things to explore and see what they do in an Android app. So for example, when you expand the Java folder under Android manifest, then you can see there's actually 3 different parts of the app you created. The first one is the actual source code of what you're developing. The second part is the test version that Android itself uses to debug and ensure that it will work on the Android platform. And the last part is where you run your own unit tests as developers. And it's a term used for basically testing and ensuring that your project works. So now what we're doing is we go to this thing called, we go to that icon up over there. Sorry, one sec. I'm going to use that mouse. Yeah. So we just did a couple of things. If you see in the step, there's something called, sorry, if you click on this or hover on this. One sec. So if you hover on this, right, the AVD manager. So if you click on that, then you're going to get this pop-up over here. And this pop-up, so this pop-up is then going to, alright, so now in this pop-up, you're going to see multiple versions of devices you can use. Anything is fine. Today we're going to go with the Pixel. And then after that, you want to press, create the virtual device, which we've already done. And then you might need to download a kind of software for OS for the phone device simulator that we're going to be using. So anything works, nothing specific, because this is a generic app for all of us to build. So once you get that downloading, the main problem with this is it's going to take a while. Of this entire tutorial, this process of downloading OS for your Android app will maybe take 20 to 30 minutes. So in case you haven't already done that, do that, and then we'll just go ahead. And everything that we're presenting today will be in the Slack group for you to review later on as well. So in case you haven't got that started, don't worry, we'll just have that now. So next, this is basically what our initial app looks like. And now if you go back in the tutorial, you can see there are a bunch of things you can examine, and step 4 is where we did our emulator. And we ran our app in our emulator as discussed. And this is what we're reviewing now. So you can also, if you have an Android phone, you can run it on your device, and it's pretty cool because then it's like you're literally using your own app. But yeah. And next, what we want to do is explore the layout editor. So now inside the Android app, we're going to learn about how we're going to understand what the layout editor means. Setting property values, string resources, and color resources. So these are all the key components towards making an interactive app. So now we want to open the layout editor. So if you go to the layout editor over here.
Oh, you're fine.
Apologies. All right. So over here, so you see it's going to be under Android, then under Res, and then layout, and then fragment first. So we want to click that fragment first, that XML. And then what you'll see is the entire attributes of the layout editor. So we'll quickly do that over here. So add, and then interesting, it's not showing up. res layout. Okay. Okay, so I think this is the first hiccup we hopped into, and that's because, as discussed, this is something that requires Android 3.6, and this unfortunately deprecated into 3.5. So that's interesting. Yes, we did install 3.6. It's interesting how this happened. It's okay, we can still go along with the tutorial. Who's in favor of continuing with just understanding the basics of Android through the tutorial versus trying to get it real time right now? So all in favor of just continuing on with the tutorial, raise your hand, I guess. Cool, and those in favor of trying to get 3.6 on board, raise your hand. Okay, so I guess, sorry, majority democracy. We'll continue with the tutorial. It's not too bad. Definitely all these resources will be at your disposal in the Slack. And we'll be around if you ever need help throughout HackDavis 2020. So let's begin. All right, so now inside you'll see these panels. So now we have like the palette, the componentry, design editor, and attributes panel. And of these, the primary one you want to worry about is, or consider is probably design editor, because that's what the core infrastructure is going to look like in your app. Like this is the raw foundation for whatever you're going to build on top. And and these things, like it's just showing you how you can view your stuff. So for example, if you want to see only all the editor of that, so XML versus a 50-50 shot, so then you can see both the code behind it as well as the actual components, and then you can just see the complete code. So, and don't get intimidated by the code. It's actually not too bad, and it's fairly intuitive as we continue going through it. So as you can see, just scrolling through, it's just showing you all the different modes you can use for viewing your code. And so now what we want to work on is the component tree. So components are essential in terms of actually putting elements inside your Android app and being able to examine more about, like, let's say you want a button and how you're going to make that user intuitive. So in fragment first .xml, we'll show that we'll switch to design mode instead of splitter codes. That way we can actually design it. And so we're going to see this is a component tree over here. You can hide it if you want with the minus sign. And you can always bring it back by clicking it again at the vertical area. And then lastly, explore view hierarchies. So within the component tree itself, there is something called the constraint layout view. And every layout has a root view. So that means essentially there's a constraint within the text view. So text view is the area. So inside your Android app itself, I can go back to this to help you out. So there's going to be a main view. So this would be like your text view. And then this is your XML view. And then inside your XML view, there is this button for text view. This is ridiculous. All right. Anyways, so let's pretend that that's up to size. And then text view is like a button you can add to actually add text like hello world or like my new solution for HackDavis. So clearly this version is deprecated, but it's fine. So all you have to do is insert your text view, and inside you can put like here wrap content, so that way it's more dynamic. And then hello is, again, these are just Android text, so like elements and IDs for letting your Android app know how you're dealing with the component you're working with. And then here, the string over here is what's actually going to display. So under what you've previously defined as a fragment with hello first fragment, which allows you to dynamically have that string, you can type in whatever you want for the title of your app. So you can title it like hello first fragment. And then inside there itself, the text view component tree. I know it's slightly a bit confusing, but don't worry, like we're going to get through this together. So in the component tree, you can see that we have the text view first, and then the button. And basically, you can edit anything in that. So it's almost like you're not even really coding. It's more of just like it's almost like a paint, like glorified version of paint, and working with that in terms of like whatever you can edit and work with. And then you can always use the constraints in the layout itself to position where you want that element. So if you want any padding or any other kind of setup. And so now here, as you can see, like Android Studio has this weird, like interesting component where it will always, like, once you have something, you minimize it. It will, instead of going up or down, it goes like sides. So you can see initially we have Gradle. We also have attribute now. And so we'll continue onwards. So text field, we have the text view attributes, and this is the fragment you made inside. So you should be able to see it. If not, don't worry. And at the end of the day, this is what you've made with your text fragment, and this is what it should display. And again, you can edit more of the display properties, like any other element. So just click it. You can click materials, font, small, font, family, color, etc. So it's fairly simple. And then we can look at the XML. So in the text view itself, everything we edited instantly translated to code all over here. And all you did was just click elements and configurations. So now we can run the app again after editing this, let's say. So if you want to make it bold, we want to change the title, we want to maybe change positioning all in the code, it will still work dynamically in the final result on the emulator. And yeah, so that's how we display all the attributes and work through the text view. So next is adding color. So like making something pop out, so that way, like when you're presenting your solution to the judges, you're able to show something that's a bit more colorful and makes them want to look more into it. So for adding color, you want to go to colors.xml, and then inside there, you should be able to see all the different predefined colors that exist. So here it is in a bit more clarity. And so here we want to choose any color, like for example, primary, dark, black. And each one of these depends on the text view, so we just worked on an element for hello world. And that text view inside, we can change the colors on that. And so like that, each element will have their own text view we can work on. So as you can see, now we just changed the hello world text view for that. So now we don't just change components, we can also change the overall background as well. So for example, in colors.xml, if you do name equals screen background, and then you provide this hex code for the color, then it will appear with that color code. So that's pretty cool as well. And of course, you can always just click on it and literally put in the color background on the tool itself. And this is what you will be seeing on your screen essentially. And then you can also change the name parameters in the same way with the constraint layout. And so now we've created something that's a bit more eye-popping. And lastly, you can also move the width and height, or the DP or visual pixels. And so you can change where the positioning is of this text on your app. So a few more things we can do is explore like different constraints. So now what happens if our match constraint and the wrap content are interfering? So now there's a constraint you want to meet, but you also say that ignore constraints because we want to wrap it around anything and make it a dynamic app. So you can explore and see different kinds of versions of what happens when you want certain text view elements to do certain things. But since we're making a generally basic app with just a text and a button, it should be fine to just wrap it. So now, that was basic, but now we're going to get a bit more into a deep realm over here. So we're going to add more buttons and an interface to interact with the buttons. So first, going back to the constraint properties, we want to look at button first. And then basically, again, copy paste this code. I mean, it's essentially what you're doing over here is just being able to go and define the parents or the roots for which will be controlling your button and how they will work. And so then, again, you can control them in the layout with the constraint widget and be able to go and, like, basically the same thing as before, but now you're working with color functionality. And so now here, when you go back into that, remember there are two modes. So there's the first mode, which is just the code, and the second mode, which was just more of the XML. So in the XML, you can actually drag around your elements, as we discussed earlier. So now by dragging it around, you can, instead of like coding, and people spend hours on end just on a regular web app, being like, how do I move this box up? How do I shift this color to the right? Or how do I make this element bigger? So all of those things can be dynamically done just by clicking on it and expanding it and making it as if you're actually inside the code itself. And so, yeah, you can make whatever edits you want, and you select, basically rinse and repeat with the buttons and create those. So you can also add constraints to the buttons. So now we want to, like, for example, move the cursor to the top, and then we can drag it to the text view. So now this will be able to connect the button with the text view itself. And now we have a connection. And then you can adjust the button height. And then you can always delete constraints and basically play around with however you want to design this. As you can see, like repositioning it, moving the button. And yeah, this is all just the same. And we just continue. So now we know how to create these. Sorry, I skipped a part. So now let's say you want to create a button, for example, called like toast. So all you have to do is go into the resources part of the coding area, and then just type in like copy paste. Honestly, just keep copy pasting these things because it's all just filler content in order to further define your code. And most of the time, it's auto-generated. And now we want to update the next button. So, because right now it does nothing, essentially. So we want to be able to actually make it do something as we did for toast. So we go back to the attributes panel, and we'll update all the usages and be able to, like, essentially, so if you follow these steps for updating it, it should work. Once again, it should be in Android 3.6. And then, so like if you factor it, rename it, etc. And then lastly, we want to add a third button. So this button would be a counter. So we're going to make a final layout with 3 buttons. And as you can see, it's a general idea. You can be a little goofy, move it around. Positioning doesn't matter, except for however you want to do it. And so now we have, so as you know, we are making the random number generator. So this is how we're setting it up. And so you can keep on examining the XML code and see the different ways you want it and what kind of match and bias you have. So this is something you can copy and paste for a finished layout for what the tutorial has, but whatever you already have should already be good enough if you like what you made. So now we also want the UI ready for our next task. So here, what we want to do is when the buttons do something when they're pressed, you need to have a UI that also interacts, even if it's doing something in the background already. So we're going to change the text view to show the numbers instead. So then we change the ID and allow those attributes to work. So as we go down, you'll see what that means. So we edited the XML directly. Well, we might get some errors like this, and that's because we changed our IDs without making a direct reference. So we can change that by adding that reference over here. So now the layout is complete, but we can make a few more changes to make it a bit more dynamic. So we can add color to the resources, and for example, so again, this is like, it's almost like a intuitive way of saying like, okay, this is the color aspect we want on the button element. This is the color code we want for that dimensional. And so we'll continue, same with the background. And then again, you can adjust the margins and update the new appearance of the text view. And then change the Android text size as well, and layout constraint. So again, it's just playing around with the layout, moving it around. And it's honestly between those 3 aspects of the actual physical code, the XML and the layout constraints, the majority of that work is done. And when you run your app, you should be seeing this. Of course, I mean, you're going a little fast, but definitely you can go back and check it out. And lastly, we want, so each individual element now works within its own scope, but we want all of them to now communicate to the app itself. And so we're gonna now use the IDs that we have for those individual apps, like components, and have them interact with one another. And then use listeners, which is a key component in Java. And we're gonna set these property values all from our code. So first we want to enable auto imports. So by auto importing, in general, imports, if you don't know much about libraries or APIs yet, the idea for importing is to be able to call on these libraries and APIs and be able to then, whenever you want to make a function, for example, when I click this button, it's going to move me over to a new page, or it's going to make me have a new action. So those are the kind of imports that instead of trying to recall, it will automatically import for you. And so now let's say we want to show toast. So you can, when you click the toast button, you want that to then say hello toast. So we go and find the two methods. And so you can copy paste this code to make that happen. So like for example, when you on a click, these are the different rules we want your code to have. And so now the method of find view by ID is what we want as for the desired argument of whatever the view is going to be based on the ID that we clicked. And that's why when you click toast, it will say hello toast. And now we want the count up button to update the number on the screen. So now again we work with the IDs, and on the click, then we work with the count me method. And we override it. So this is a cool function in developing where instead of constantly making new functions, you can have the same function but with new parameters or arguments. And this will allow you to basically override the other functions. So now let's say you have two functions, same name, but different kinds of requirements. So now in your code, when you want to use one of the functions you've made, you can just type in that function, and based on the number of requirements you put for your call to the functions you've already made, then it will only choose whichever one fits, rather than trying to run all of them or choose none of them. And so this property of overriding is really powerful and important in terms of being a developer and coding like scalable apps in the future. So now getting on to like our fragment class and count me, you make the new method so private, meaning that it's encapsulated inside and can't be accessed by other parts of the code. And so it's like a concept of encapsulation, which is strong in object-oriented programming like Java. And so now you can see you've made this method and you're counting, and it's basically allowing you to create an integer out of when you press the button, and then show that integer as a string. And now in your text view, you also want that string that you just found to appear. And basically adding all these extra code snippets to further use that process. And then lastly, you want to copy paste the final var over here. And it should allow the text view to format and work. So when we run our app, it should now show a number. So we're almost there. This is, I think, the last part. So now for implementing the second part, what we want is to create random number generation. And so we've only done a first screen, but we want to make it random. We want to be able to attain something between 0 and the end of the second screen. So we're going to learn about passing information from one screen to the other, which is going to be super useful for when you're developing your apps in HackDavis and beyond, because now you can communicate and be able to create, let's say, a landing page or something you want, and then relay that information to other parts and components you design. So now, for example, here it's a random number between 0 and, this is bad coding, because as you can see, they made a decimal, but literally took in a decimal because they put that in a string instead of putting in a decimal value. And so it's going to be replaced by a number. So obviously, that's the thing we're going to work on now. So we're going to add a text view for the random number. So as we did for everything else, all things text view, and then we can design it, make it roll with the attributes. And then we want to set it to R as the placeholder. and set, like, again, these are all just dimensional ideas that will make it more aesthetically pleasing, but you don't necessarily have to add it if you just want something that works for now. And then you can just copy paste all of this, and it will allow you to give a formatting that will work if you don't want to just keep on experimenting yourself. And now you update the text view, so you'll give it the update with the second fragment title. And then by following these steps, it's again formatting all in this code, which is copy pasting. And then now we're going to have a random number, which now we can drag and drop inside the XML component of our the IDE. And then we're going to change the background if we want. Again, these are all optional parameters to make it look nice. And then examine the navigation of the graph. So this is the fancy part. Like, we're all here for something like this right now, like core part of Android development, where it's we've done all the like fixing things, adding colors, shifting things, making them relatively interactive. But now, in terms of actually having entire panels of Android interact with one another, this is one of the core reasons we're here today. So let's explore more into it. So we want to open the navgraph.xml. So again, in Android, there's like this long path, like app, res, navigation, navgraph. So we go to the navgraph, and then you get a layout editor and design. And so now here you can work with the layout editor in terms of actually connecting the different applets together in the first and second fragment. So you can literally just drag, drop, and move. And then we want to, in the navigation graph, we want to click on the first fragment, attributes, and then you want to select what kind of thing you want to edit. So for example, it's a string you want, or you can update it to an integer, float. So these are all primitive data types, which we all recognize. So I'm just going to assume everyone has some knowledge on programming in this regard of how data can be shown. And then we can always make the string to an integer just so that there are a number of tiers. And now, so that was on the first fragment. Now we want to send it to the second fragment. So we're going to send the count to the second fragment in this regard. So again, these are all Java functions that we're going to use. So like we have our integer, and then we're going to change it to a string and follow this code. And then this code, essentially what you're doing is again having the first fragment to the second fragment occur as a function. So this is one of the functions we created, and now we're going to use. And finally, the entire this is the whole method, like the whole shebang that we all discussed and talked about in this just one giant part of code. And then in the second fragment, we're going to have an argument from a string to an integer. So again, it's the reverse. So now we have our integer to a string. We want to reverse that process in order to carry in the data. So that's why we run this. And then we're going to update the second fragment to compute that part of it, because remember, you're working with two fragments. So now we're going to, again, follow this in order to create the number generation part. This is the math of it. And then you want to update the text view to really reflect those functions. So at the very end, we're going to have something like a render.org. So thank you all for working with me on this tutorial, but we're not done just yet. We worked on making a random number generation app, and we've seen all we can do with Android, but this is just the beginning. And while it may be hard at first or confusing, after making this, the possibilities become endless, and we can explore even more. And so while this was fairly ambitious, trying to do an entire Android project without having everything load on time, we somehow made it through, which is great. And we have also a few announcements to make regarding this. So if you'd like to apply this knowledge on Android or be able to be actually more formally introduced to it and be able to actually go through step-by-step tutorials, we'll have those covered in future workshops by our club. And we also want to share with you a bit more about the Solution Challenge I talked about earlier with Google.
Hello everyone. So for the Solution Challenge, we have talked about creating your own project, pitching it to Google, and you may also be on the big competition, which should be against other DSC teams at our own DSC and other DSCs at other universities. And in order to show how powerful those ideas can be, we are happy to showcase one of the videos that has been used in Indonesia. And I believe that a lot of guys know about the problems in Indonesia when it comes to floods. And that can be really devastating since it may drown full homes and cities, causing people stress and making them flee from their own place. And tonight, we will be showcasing one of the videos to show the power of the Solution Challenge in Indonesia.
Ibu saya mendidik saya boleh bermain, tapi bermainnya tuh nggak boleh jauh-jauh. Saya melihat kakak saya kebanjiran, yang paling parah tahun 2007, di mana rumah itu sangat tenggelam, banyak korban jiwa yang ditimbulkan, dan kakak saya itu kehilangan.
Kemarin ya lumayan, kemarin.
Kalau airnya semakin tinggi kan, nggak bisa lalu lintas kendaraan kan nggak bisa lewat, kita biasanya pakai perahu. Paling kalau udah agak parah lagi kita bersih. Warga juga pasti resah kalau nggak sebenarnya berita resah. Kalau sudah diberitakan nanti ada persiapan.
Saya ketika kuliah di PEN sini, saya pertama kali tahu DSC itu dari dana. Seharusnya kita bisa menghindari hal buruk terjadi ketika kita mengetahui apa yang akan terjadi. Dana membantu saya sekali dalam hal tersebut bersama tim membuat aplikasi iPhone. Kemudian kita mencoba ke sana, kita menuju ke warga Bojonegoro.
Kalau sekarang kalau ada aplikasi ini kan bisa langsung masuk ke HP-nya masing-masing. Jadi semua warga langsung otomatis langsung tahu.
It's very touching to be able to make a change onto people's lives, and that's what DSC in Indonesia was able to do, and that's what we're hoping to do here at Davis. As we have a lot of community issues, we believe that there will be a lot of ideas that you guys can pitch in to win that challenge. The challenge we'll be taking applications for the challenge from now up until mid-February, and we believe that incorporating one of the Google's tools that we'll be teaching you guys will be vital in order to make your app a huge success. Right now, we are going through events in order to pitch in new ideas and Google tools that you guys can incorporate in your own apps. And if you have an idea and you want to grab and get some teammates, you can also reach out to us through our email or through our Slack page that you guys just joined. We believe that through proper teams and proper ideas, we can be able to make a change into our community, and that's what DSC stands for. Our goal is to help our community using the tools that we're being taught at school and make an impact on our society. Thank you so much. So, does anyone have any question regarding the app that we went through today? Building an Android app using Kotlin on JavaScript, or about the solution challenge? All right. We believe you guys enjoyed our event, and we hope to see you more into our future events. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Sorry, we do have some raffles if you'd like.
Oh, yes.
Yes. So we'll start that up. So initially, the idea before this program stopped working was we'd make a random number generator. It'd be kind of cool if we could use that to then do the raffle. But since it deprecated, so it's good things to know, I believe. As a developer, things will not always go to plan, but it's good to always understand and learn and continue working past that. So while we get that set up, fun fact, so everything that you saw in the previous video, at least 90% of that is what we've covered today, if not implemented. So literally, if you're able to go and have components work with each other and be able to update data that you provide, that's already half the battle in creating any successful app to do what you want to achieve. And the other half comes in just calling in APIs or data from companies that provide things such as like weather reports, disaster relief, and connecting with their databases. So although today we weren't able to fully dive into actually providing all of you with a fully working app, definitely we'll be around to help you make that happen for this hackathon and beyond, as well as you can contact us through Slack. So we'll quickly count off. So want to begin over here? So 1,
1, 4, 5, 6,
10, 11, 12, all right, and then, so we beat 13?
13?
Yeah.
Okay, 13, 14, 15, 16.
And then the 4 over here.
Okay, 17, 18, 19, 20.
All right. So let's begin. Drum roll, please. 12.
Who's 12?
So I believe it was one of you two over there. All right. So you get one. So we have a shirt or a laundry bag you can choose from. And then next. I'm sorry. 16. All right. Nice. So you also get, I guess we'll just do laundry bags for the first 2 and then shirt for the big one. All right, let's go. Okay, 3. Nice job. All right, so you also get a laundry member shirt, I guess. I think we're good.
Yes.
All right, thank you, everyone.